on behalf of all of us in Westchester County, you are in our prayers and you are our thoughts.
We get to compete with the World Series, are you kidding me? So, first of all, I'm used to doing some public speaking in the industry that I work in the automotive industry, and talking about subjects that I'm extremely confident in and I'm a subject matter expert in. This is completely different for me. So I'll ask you to bear with me. This is probably the first time, definitely the first time, that I've ever publicly spoken about this in this depth. So I did write everything down as to not mess up and miss anything. But first of all, I'll dive right in. I want to thank the Pediatric Cancer Foundation for allowing me the honor to speak with you tonight. On behalf of my family, we're so grateful. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not anyone famous. I'm just a parent who has experienced unimaginable pain of losing a child to cancer. I'm grateful to be able to share that story and talk about our amazing little boy who taught us so much about life, about love, and about strength. Our son, Paul Ulysses Jimenez, was born March 18th, 2005. Unfortunately, he died this year on January 5th, 2016. We still wake up in disbelief that this is our reality. This week will actually mark 10 months since we've been able to kiss Paul and tell him how much we love him. We had almost 11 years with Paul. He was the firstborn of our 3 children, our only son, and he was my best friend in the whole world. My heart is forever broken, knowing that I will never spend time building our Lego sets together, watching him play sports, ride his bike, play with his friends or cousins, and teach his sisters in ways that only an amazing big brother can. You see, Paul had the misfortune of having a sports nut for a father. Unfortunately, not a New York sports nut. And he always wanted to be like Daddy. So on any given day, he could be found at Green Acres Elementary School in Scarsdale, proudly wearing a San Francisco 49ers jersey, or an Oakland A's ball cap, sometimes both at the same time. You see, he didn't have to like the teams I liked, but I have to admit that I was proud to have a mini-me walking around, and it was really incredible to finally have someone to watch sports with and scream like crazy at the television. He was even brave enough last September to travel with me to Pittsburgh, to enter enemy territory representing our team against the Steelers. You see, it was us against the world in what was supposed to be the first of annual trips to see the 49ers play around the country. We'll never get a chance to do that now. We'll never be a complete family again because cancer took that from us. In October of 2015, a month after that crushing football defeat in Pittsburgh and a long drive home, my wife Joanna had a wonderful idea. Since Paul was going to be learning about government in 5th grade, she thought it would be a great idea to take a trip to Washington, D.C. We went and had an incredible time. We visited museums, monuments, the White House. We even got a tour of the Capitol building. There were 2 other things we did a lot of on that vacation: eating and walking. You see, when the Jimenez family travels, finding all of the best food spots in town is very high on the priority list. We did a lot of walking in between meals to all of the great tourist spots that DC has to offer. And Paul was never really one to complain about being tired. He was the Energizer Bunny on most days. But on this particular weekend, he was constantly stopping to sit down and rest. We chalked it up to all the walking we were doing all day long. He also didn't seem to have his usual appetite. He would argue that he was too big and too hungry to order off the kids' menu, and he wanted the big hamburger. But when his meals came, he only nibbled a bit and he was full. Again, unlike him, but this was a different type of vacation for us, so we didn't really read too much into it. A few days after returning from DC, I was lucky enough to chaperone his 5th grade class to an obstacle course in northern Westchester. It was several hours of physical challenges, and we had an absolute blast. Towards the end of the trip, I wanted to take a few photos of Paul and his classmates, and I noticed that just like in DC, he was sitting down and resting while the rest of his classmates were continuing to run around. Like in DC, I really didn't read too much into it because after all, it was an obstacle course, and I was tired just watching these kids run around. Again, he only picked at his lunch before claiming to be full. The very next night, Paul woke up sick in the middle of the night. He wasn't feeling well, and he vomited a bit. We had him sleep in our bed as I was getting up early in the morning for a business trip. I woke up that morning for a flight to Toronto and kissed him on the head and told him I loved him. When I landed in Toronto a few hours later, I had a call from Joanna urging me to turn around and come back home ASAP. Paul had fallen down at home and was just feeling out of it. He was looking pale, so Joanna took him to the pediatrician. Appendicitis was the first thought based on the symptoms that Paul showed. They were transferring him to NYU Medical Center for what was likely to be an emergency appendectomy. I worked with Delta to get a return trip right away, but Mother Nature wasn't cooperating. There were major lightning storms in the Toronto area, and my flight was delayed until 11 p.m. When I finally landed at LaGuardia after midnight, I received another call from Joanna. Paul, come fast. It's bad. It's really bad. The doctors had performed a sonogram and determined that the problem wasn't with our son's appendix. It was a tumor that could be cancerous, and it had just ruptured. I raced to the hospital as quickly as I could with tears streaming down my face, but confident that the doctors were wrong. This couldn't be happening. Not to us, not to my little buddy, never. But the nightmare was real. It was confirmed to be a tumor, and we made the decision to have Paul transferred to Memorial Sloan Kettering. Unfortunately, we were familiar with MSK because my wife's mother, Edna, was treated there and ultimately passed away from her cancer 9 years earlier. We met with Dr. Myers and Dr. Heaton, and the plan was for a biopsy of the tumor, and if they deemed it to be cancerous, then they would implant him with a Mediport for treatment since he would already be sedated. Again, as we paced the hospital in tears, disbelief, we were confident that they were going to tell us it was negative and that he would be fine. After all, he's a healthy 10-year-old boy. He was just playing tackle football with his team a week earlier. He can't have cancer. The news was bad, really bad. Not only was it cancer, but it seemed to be a tumor around his pancreas. They weren't sure of an official diagnosis yet. That came almost a week later. And that's when a new word was introduced into our vocabulary. One that I had never ever heard before. Rhabdomyosarcoma. I could barely pronounce it, let alone spell it to all of the people who were texting me to find out how Paul was doing. Paul was diagnosed with stage 3 rhabdomyosarcoma, a rare cancer that is diagnosed less than 250 times a year. And it was further complicated by the fact that the tumor was lodged between his pancreas and his spleen, and there was also a large blood clot connected to it. And this made surgery nearly impossible. His treatment plan was set up for 54 weeks of intense chemotherapy. The news of hearing that your child has cancer is just absolutely devastating. We felt absolutely helpless, scared out of our minds, and confused as to how this could possibly happen to us. Thankfully, we have an amazing support system of family and friends, and while we still had this fear and confusion, it was now time for us to all fight. Never for a second did we allow ourselves to believe anything other than beating this thing and moving on with our lives. The parental instinct kicks into overdrive. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I didn't even realize before this happened to us that childhood cancer was even a thing. I always put cancer in that list of things that you get when you get old, not kids. It was fight time as parents, and we needed to prepare this innocent little boy to embark on a fight for his life. We researched the chemo that they prescribed, and wow, does that scare you even more? It's absolute poison. The medicines they use to treat this disease are more than 20 years old. This began our education into the need for funding and for research. We read everything we could find on the subject, and the statistics are absolutely alarming. 46 children are diagnosed with cancer in this country every day. 7 children per day will die from their cancer. 12% of children who are diagnosed with cancer will not survive it. And the most absolute shocking statistic of all, is that less than 4% of all cancer research funding goes to support childhood cancers. Let that sink in for a second. Less than 4%. How can that be? This absolutely has to change. This is what led Joanna and I to keep researching and raise awareness for change. This is also what led us to meet the Pediatric Cancer Foundation. In October last year, as Paulie lay in his hospital bed recovering from his biopsy and preparing to begin his chemo treatments, we had an idea. We've all seen people wearing t-shirts supporting a person or for a cause, and we thought it'd be great to create some shirts for our family to show Paul our support. Together, we went online and found a t-shirt website where we could create a custom design. He created an amazing design, black shirts with red text to match the colors of the brand new 49ers alternate jerseys we had just purchased for this season. The back had a red and gold stormtrooper helmet and the words Niners Empire. The front, hashtag PaulieStrong. We ordered them for our family, and when they arrived a few days later, people began to ask us how they could get one to show their support. When I shared with Paul that a lot of people were asking to buy shirts, he came up with an idea that was way beyond his years. He said, "Dad, let's make more and sell them to raise money for people who are sick." I told him what a wonderful idea it was and that I would do some research to find out how we could do that. We found a site that allowed us to create our design and sell them online and choose a charity to receive the proceeds. Paul said, "Wouldn't it be cool if we sold 100 shirts?" It absolutely would be cool, Paul. I have to admit, I didn't think we'd come close, but hey, let's shoot for the moon, right? We tried to upload his original design, but apparently Disney owns the trademark to the Stormtrooper logo. So we were gonna need to make some adjustments. We went with a simple design, hashtag PaulieStrong with a gold ribbon for pediatric cancer. I then needed to choose a nonprofit charity to send the profits to. I didn't have a clue where to start, but I knew we wanted something that had to do with pediatric cancer. I began Googling pediatric cancer, and the Pediatric Cancer Foundation came up at top. My first phone call was to Nancy Josselson to learn more about their cause and to even see if they'd be interested. She took the time and explained all of the details of the PCF and the amazing things they do to support families who are impacted by pediatric cancer and how they fund research projects at several hospitals, including Memorial Sloan Kettering, where Paul was being treated. We had a match, and the PaulieStrong t-shirt campaign went live. Paul would check daily to see how we were doing. Could we get to that magic number of 100 shirts? Well, we sold 500 shirts in that first round and raised $13,000 with that first campaign. Nancy showed up at our house near the holidays to deliver some gifts from the PCF for Paul and his sisters and cheer up the family and just let us know that we were in her thoughts. Paul wouldn't get the joy of delivering that money to the Pediatric Cancer Foundation before he passed away. On the morning of January 5th of this year, Paul passed away from an emergency surgery that was required when his tumor yet again ruptured, causing massive internal bleeding. This was the same surgery the doctors feared was too dangerous when he was first diagnosed 2.5 months earlier. His tumor was 3.5 centimeters in diameter when he was diagnosed. 2.5 months later, it was at 33 centimeters. The chemo was totally ineffective against this monster. We need to find something better. We need to find a cure. We still wake up sometimes in the middle of the night hearing the words uttered by Dr. Myers that day. He came to find us a few hours into Paul's surgery, and he was clearly shaken when he spoke. We've lost Paul. I can't put into words the pain and devastation that hit our family when those words came out. We still feel the impact of that moment on our daily basis. It's incomprehensible. Our little boy, our precious son, was stolen from us by this terrible disease. The shock and disbelief quickly turned into immense sadness. The pain was worse than we ever imagined and will be with us for a lifetime. If it wasn't for the two beautiful little girls, Edie and Juliet, that we have at home who just lost their big brother, Joanna and I would likely have crawled into a cave somewhere and never come out. We don't have that option. We have to stay strong for them and for each other. Paul's wishes for the PaulieStrong shirts were to raise money to help others. So we channeled our grief into creating a foundation in his name to create and generate awareness for pediatric cancer and funding for a cure. There's now been over 2,000 PaulieStrong shirts sold all over the world, and we will continue to fight in his name with the PaulieStrong Foundation and with the amazing team at the Pediatric Cancer Foundation. What happened to our son should not have happened. There should have been more research. There should have been a cure. Many people have no idea what these children are enduring until you're part of this unimaginable world. We were a happy family, and on October 15th, with Paul's diagnosis, our life changed forever. We became part of a club that we didn't know existed and wanted no part of. But we entered that new club and fought alongside our little boy. We met the most amazing people and amazingly strong children and the true heroes that care for them. We hope and pray every day that these children can be saved. It's just so unjust that they are suffering and fighting this war when all they want to do is play and to be a kid. Please spread the word for pediatric cancer research. We need to find a cure, and our children are worth so much more than 4% of funding. Our dream is to one day see that cure happen for the benefit of our children and for future generations. Paul taught us so much about being strong. I don't think he ever realized how strong he was, and we'll spend the rest of our time on earth making him proud. Some of you may know that I helped coach Paul's former football team this season, and it was such an amazing group of kids. What you may not know is that when I first asked if I was interested in doing it, I said no. I didn't think that I could do it. I thought it would be too painful. I'm not as strong as Paul. I called Joanna, and she reminded me of Paul's first football season 3 years ago. At the end of the season, during an end-of-year dinner, there's a raffle for prizes. Paul was called up to claim a prize and had his choice of all kinds of cool football stuff. Hats, footballs, jerseys, the 49ers Kaepernick jersey that we brought and left on the table. His choice, a book. He returned to the table with his prize and handed it to me. Here you go, Dad. I got this for you so you can help next year. The book was called Coaching Youth Football. With that in my head, I called Rippy Phillips back and I said, yeah, I'm in. I deeply regret that I didn't do it earlier, though I made every single game in practice when Paul played. And it was a really fun season this year, though the drives home without him after games in practice were nearly unbearable. But I know it's something he would have wanted me to do. If I can share a little advice with everyone here, it would be this. Please don't take a single day for granted. Tell your children you love them every single day. I know in my heart that Paul knew how much we loved him. Joanna and I told him every single day of his life. Together, we can make a difference against childhood cancer, and I know that would make Paul proud of everybody here tonight. I want to close with a beautiful quote from The Little Prince, which Joanna used to read to Paul at night. In one of the stars, I shall be living. In one of them, I shall be laughing. And so it will be as if all of the stars are laughing when you look up at the sky at night. And there is sweetness in the laughter and all of the stars and in the memories of those you love. We love you, Paulie. Thank you very much.